His team, man like Tyrese bringing us in. Second portion. So we've had some feedback. Shout out to Ranks breaking it down. Pure diversion tactics with the death of former MP or the late MP Ann Whittaker. That it's a diversion tactics, and Ranks went on to speak about what almost looked like a ritual with Nigel Farage laying a wreath, and that it looked staged. I can confirm, I've seen video footage that it was staged and that he walked up and down that road about 4 or 5 times for the cameras, and that he laid the wreath and all that nodding and all that kind of brotherhood, all that stuff. Yeah, maybe he's sending other signals, but and other messages. I couldn't rule that out, but I do know one thing, that he is an attention. He's an attention hoe. He likes the camera, and it was a moment to make it about him, and he was not going to give that up for anything. And so the fact that this now has moved his £5 million debacle or inquiry, he's kind of moved it slightly to the back burner. I mean, it's good for him, isn't it? It's evidence that the reformer are also hated, and it means that he too is targeted in the same, so he can spin it and he can wheel it, but only time will tell. The truth will come out. He's a bought politician, and he's running on borrowed time. And maybe he doesn't know it. Maybe he actually doesn't know it, but it's only going to be a matter of time before I say the universe was created in justice, and so yeah, it's only a matter of time before justice is served. But yeah, we're jumping into the main conversation, the main topic, and we want to explore why young women are so angry. But I wanna like, when they say put forward my hypothesis, right? I want to put forward my hypothesis. Everything's got to be within context, right? Because there's a lot of stuff online about red pill rage and, radical feminism and, a lot of gender vibes that's going on. And people get a bit, we talk about this word parasocial, where you start to live through the events of somebody else famous. And I noticed that it does really, the parasocial does seem to become heightened when it's to do with genders, and so men end up rooting for the men the man in a story, and women end up rooting for the woman. And the principle of, really what's right and wrong, what's noble, what's generous, what's empathic or thoughtful or kind, or any of these things kind of fall to the wayside, and people just want to root for their gender or root for their sex. And I think that the machine, the algorithm, and those that program the algorithm may be playing a game with both sides. And they might be changing what would be a racial struggle into a gender war. Stick with me. Stick with the old fella, yeah? Or they might be transforming what used to be a class struggle into a gender war. And the same people, basically the same men and women from the more affluent side of the track, the bourgeoisie, the owners of wealth, both men and women, those families, those people and their families, yeah, they may be playing both sides against the other and actually scooping up the check at the end of the day. So I want to start with my hypothesis, yeah. The number of women who love men for being men outnumber those who want to create a genderless communist society. I'll say it again. And this is my proposition, right? The number of women who love men for being men outnumber those who want to create a genderless communist society. So a few months ago, back in April, the New Statesman published an article, Why Young Women Are So Angry, right? I framed it as why are women so angry, because I don't know if there's a difference between the young and the not so young, right? But they may be because of who is receiving more of the messaging, right? From big business. But let's go for it. Let's see if we can unpack this. It reads, the growing divergence in political sensibilities between young men and young women has been well catalogued in recent years. The most straightforward and therefore more compelling narrative is that this has been driven by men under the influence of the manosphere, right? The evil manosphere, yeah? Making them men getting into spaces by themselves because there's no place for them in mainstream society to discuss issues that affect them as a gender. There's loose women, but there isn't. I ain't seen no episode of Loose Man yet, or the equivalent men's show where they talk about guy stuff and how it impacts them, right? So, but they believe it's the manosphere that is, to blame, right? But moving to the manosphere and moving to the right, right? Well, it is a point to note whether it's the manosphere. You have right wing or ultra right and white. That was a Freudian slip, but maybe it wasn't. You have the white manosphere. You have the right wing manosphere. You have the ultra right, yeah, like neo-Nazi type, like ethno-nationalist Rupert Lowe type, right? Or people that are even right of Trump in the USA, for example, the Proud Boys and people like that, right? Very right-winged manosphere. But you also got left-wing manosphere as well, people to the left, right? So these ideas are influenced or create a divergence of opinion. It's the same with feminism. You don't just have, we talk about feminism, but you don't just have feminism. You have radical feminists, right? You have liberal feminists. So, there's a feminist position related to being traditional wives and mothers. There's another set of radical feminists that would detest the idea of the nuclear family and having a husband and men and things like that riles them. But they could be both feminists, right? They believe in, rights, access to education, healthcare, freedom of choice for women, etc., etc. Women shouldn't have to have their husband co-sign their bank account for them to open a bank account. Those, people that believe in pretty regular stuff, decent folk would follow, yeah? But let me continue anyway before I go off on my diatribe. But in these pages last week, my inimitable colleague, Emily Lawford, supported by polling from Merlin Strategy, put forward a counter-narrative that women under 30 are moving to the radical left on both politics and economics. They hold a far more negative view of their male peers than their male peers do of them, and are also more pessimistic about their own life chances. Why that is a surprise is because a surprise to many, is because so many young men, and they keep talking about the male crises and the main loneliness epidemic, and the stats that do talk about young men and addiction, young men and suicide, young men and lower and lower rates of entering into higher education, and graduating and things of this nature. Less young men becoming, more economically viable, right? And young women graduating at higher rates and becoming more economically viable and entering into the professions and things like the subjects like the humanities, right? In university campuses are numerically dominated by young women. And the a lot of the social sciences and the fields of psychology, 70%, these type of number, 80%, female graduates, young ladies graduating, right? So it's a shock because, you know, it's the young men that have been seen as dropping off the face of the cliff and into obscurity. So, and all we're told about Andrew Tate, right? They should all be angry, right? And foaming at the mouths, fully subscribed misogynists by at least 13. The way that they talk about things, the moral panic in the mainstream, right? Remember the TV show with Ashley Waters, Adolescent, right? How does what's his name again? How did the Prime Minister refer to it when he said this documentary when he was talking about it should be shown in schools? And I was like, is that a Freudian slip or is that man doing some kind of mind control? It's a piece of art made up. It's make believe. I did a whole show with a colleague of mine on YouTube about it was no deep dive, that they just flirted with a few ideas and buzzwords, right? Related to, you know, manosphere. It was nothing substantive. But the Prime Minister, Starmer, or whatever his name is, what the boy name again? Starmer, referred to it as a documentary. So people are shocked that women, young women, under 30, are moving to the radical left. They hold far more negative views of their male peers than their male peers do of them, and are also more pessimistic about their own life chances. Gen Z women, the polling found, are less likely to say they feel happy, ambitious, excited, fulfilled than their male peers. How did we get here? I'm curious, how did we get here? It's not a competition. It sometimes does rub me up the wrong way when they make comparisons, because it almost like a Pavlovian, right? Like autopilot, like you're getting triggered into some kind of competition as opposed to curiosity and wondering why that would be the case, right? When they comparing, right? This is in part a story of how the online world reshapes the real one. I have to say, in my own words, right? I think the science is out. The data is out. Young people spend too much time, generally speaking, too much time online and less time in the real world. And that's young people from school age going right up across, you know, youth populations, right? Spend a lot of time online and less time in the real world, having less real experiences, watching more videos or TikTok posts or whatever is the medium, right? Talking about somebody else's experiences with respect to their experience with the opposite sex, whether it's a relationship, right? Or, you know, something of that nature.
Bluetooth connected.
Yeah, there's more of that going on than people are actually having real life experiences. And so it's skewing their attitudes to one another. That's my analysis, right? And that's not really too far from what the science is saying, or it's in line with what the science is saying, that young people are spending a lot of time, especially their formative years. So they're talking about, there's one young lady, what's her name? You need this lady's written a whole piece on it, right? Her name is Freya India. And she talks about how, in her research, that young girls of like 13, 14, these type of ages, they have some extreme and jaded attitudes related towards the opposite sex and men. And it's not possible that they could have lived, she said, it's not possible they could have lived a life where they had those type of experiences themselves to be that jaded, right? But it's because of possibly things that they've seen online. There is also the advent of pornography and more and more humiliation style porn that younger people are watching. So the children are watching the pornography at younger and younger ages. And the data is saying that they're actually having sexual relations at a later age compared to past generations. How does that work out? So I want to break that down for a minute, or just say that a little bit more clearer. So in the past, people entering into puberty would be watching less porn, or be subjected to less porn, or consume less porn, right? And they would be having intimate relations with the opposite sex at a relatively earlier age compared to the young people of today, the teenagers of today, who are watching more hardcore stuff, right? And entering into sexual relations a lot later. So they got all that stuff up in their head, in their minds, forming attitudes before they've had intimate connections to really know what it is to be with somebody with to have those kind of experiences and to have a real life experience. How's that working out? Let's proceed. Social media has incentivized. Actually, let's go back. This is in part a story of how the online world reshapes the real one. As the boundary between the two becomes ever hazier, social media has incentivized the promulgation of extreme minority views. That's why I said I believe that the number of women who love men for being men outnumber those who want to create a genderless communist society. But the ones that want to create that genderless communist society, they're loud. They speak loud. Both of the influencers who peddle them and the tech companies whose algorithms surface their content profit from pitting men and women against one another. Gen Z grew up in an era of freely available online pornography, much of which depicts horrific violence towards women. For many young women, watching such porn was the first experience of sex, warping their views of what is permissible, what is to be expected of them, and what they are supposed to enjoy. As adults, they have encountered men who want to reenact these violent acts, or else are also addicted to their airbrushed and flattered women on their phones that they can't get it up for a real one. Lord have his mercy. Lord have his mercy. The effect is that even if young women are not in fact surrounded by men who have them, or with whom they are innately compatible, they begin to believe that they are. The article goes deeper, but look, let's try and reflect on that for a few moments. Let's try and reflect on that. So do we understand why, or does it give an idea of why young women, some young women, right, but too many, right, even have a more negative appreciation of their male counterparts than the other way around? The young people in general, they've been set up by the tech companies. I'm telling you, they are being set up by the tech companies. The tech companies have a loyalty to their owners, right? They don't have loyalty to, there's no ethical commitment, right? And the war of the 21st century is an information war. We're living in an information age, right? And the young mind that has this neuroplasticity and drinks up information is being radicalized both on the left and on the right, but both the male and the female, right? Young men. But the surprise is, why are the young girls so angry? They haven't had these experiences. right? To justify that, or what made it such a surprise, right? That they would have such negative attitudes. How does that bode for declining birth rates? And the question I'll leave you before the break with is, how do we think this relates to black communities, black ethnicities in the Western world? Are we a part? Are our young ladies a part of this, or is it something that doesn't impact? What's your thoughts? Because they had a study that was about the male epidemic some time ago, and about men, but then on further research they found actually it was a study done in America, for example, and they found that amongst African American men, they had deeper friendships than their white counterparts, and they had played significant roles in their children's lives, and even when they were not with the biological mother, or they were no longer with the mother of their children. And they had these different outlets and associations and aspects of their life that gave their lives this rich meaning and this depth. And so there wasn't this specific male epidemic that affected black men in the way that it did mainstream, for want of a better term, white Americans. So do we think this is influencing our girls also, or is this more the luxury of the white middle class Britain or the West? I'll catch you after the break.